Are you a lone wolf who doesn't go to church? Do you think not going to church is cool? Well, we're going to talk about why you should be in church, what Jesus says about fellowship, and why you should be plugged into your local body. Coming up next on Becoming Branches. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Becoming Branches. My name is Adam Cook. With me right here, Pastor Dustin McKinney. I hope you liked that last blooper reel.
Oh, man, I had such a good time watching that.
It's
and
funny.
I was reminded why I do not grow facial hair.
Why?
Because the scene where it popped up, I was like, oh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I noticed that I look completely different all the time again. And that's something I'm going to try to limit. I'm going to try to look the same, maybe like the shorter goatee, the same kind of hairstyle, maybe for like 4 or 5 episodes in a row. And
you've heard it here, folks. Remember this episode. I'm going to try to remember that you said that
because every time I look at the blooper video, I'm like a different person every time. I got the mustache, got a hat, got glasses, got a beard, I got this, got that. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to be the same. Maybe.
I'm trying to model Jesus.
Yes.
Consistently faithful, steadfast all the time.
All of that. So what are we getting into, brother?
Well, we are going to be talking about the importance of the church. We're going to be talking about the importance of being ingrained in church family and friendships, and why that's important to the life of a believer. Because have you ever met anybody who said, like, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church?
A lot, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, you know that meme where it's like,
yeah. So, like, but what do you think? Like, where do you think this idea, this philosophy that church is not necessary in the pursuit of faith, being a follower of Jesus?
Man, I think it's a lot of things. I think the church has gotten a bad rap.
Okay.
And I think that's a large part of it, right? So either you have family members that are, oh, church is about money and it's all, and then they just check it off the list like it's no good. And they blanket the all churches, like they're all the same. Or you have, you might have, unfortunately, there's a lot of churches that are coming up that are just unfaithful to the word, that don't preach it correctly. You have progressive churches that are straight demonic, and now you have like, you might want to get into church, but now you're like, wait a minute, I don't know which one to go to, and you legit are in this kind of limbo of where do I go? I think there is a small percentage out there that just say they're Christians, but I don't go to church, but I'm a Christian, which means don't talk to me about this anymore. I said I'm a Christian, that should be enough, but they're not living for Christ. I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's what I gave you, and that's what we're going to go with, and I'm going to bounce it back to him. What do you think?
Well, I think you hit a lot of good points. I remember when I was a kid, I lived in a lake community.
Yeah.
And there was this guy, I met him several times. We started to, usually at the beach, at the lake. And I started to develop a little bit of a relationship with him. I really looked up to him. He was like a really cool guy. He's like, hey, there's this nice kind of older guy who's willing to talk to like a younger guy, and I didn't feel like I was completely wasting his time. And he was a Christian.
Yeah.
He was a believer. We would talk about God. And then I came to find out that he didn't go to church. And he talked about how it wasn't important. Like, I'm still a believer in Jesus. Like, I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. I don't need church. Like, I don't need all that. And it just always stuck with me. It's just like this, when you got something in your teeth all day and you can just feel it, it's just gnawing at you.
Do I have something in my teeth?
Like, throughout, like, the next couple of months, like, this thing just gnawed at me. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So I'll say this. When we see in the gospel, or any of the gospel writers, or even Paul, who writes most of the New Testament, when they're having conversations about salvation, you often do not see the church listed in these requirements. That it is by grace that we have been saved through faith. So it's all that Jesus has done. But church is a core, an essential piece of this life that I'm now pursuing after Jesus. So I would say, sure, because many believers who are saved, it wasn't like they went to church first, right? They heard the gospel probably somewhere outside of church. And so, yes, church is not necessary for salvation. Jesus Christ and a repentant spirit and a spirit who trusts Jesus, that's what's required for salvation. But on that point, now that you are now in this relationship, church is an essential requirement. And we see it in Scripture, but also just in experience. And what I'd kind of like to get into tonight is even beyond like the doors of church, even Christian friendships. Like, yes, we're called to relations with our brothers, but we're also called to intimate friendships. Mm-hmm. And God's designed us to have intimate friendships. And that it's so important, the people that we choose, to allow into that fold of intimate relationships, intimate friendships.
And you should be careful who you let in. Mm-hmm. So I think there's different layers of like, imagine a circle or an egg. I guess you have different mm-hmm. layers. So you have the outside layer of general, I call general fellowship. Right. Hey, how you doing? I'm great. How are you? Mm-hmm. Oh, everything's well, great. And you do care, but then you have the next layer down where someone's like, hey, will you pray for me? And you know them enough to pray for them. Then you have the next layer down that's now you're into that more intimate core that's saying, hey, I'm going to talk to you about something, and you can be 100% honest with that person. You know that person is going to be there for you, not be shook by what you're going to say, lock in with you. And then you've got the people who are down in the crux with you, like heartbroken with you, and they're down with you. And that should be an intimate view, because you don't want 75 people knowing what just happened to you. And but the importance of that intimate view is vital, because once you get down in that place, you desperately need to talk to someone, and there's a release about it if you can just confess. So if you sin, let's say, oh man, you don't know what I've done, confess your sins to a brother that you trust, and there is so much freedom in that. And you can they can be in the gap for you and pray for you when you're too tired to do it. And I've had moments like that where you just, you've done something stupid, and you just, I've desperately got to talk, and you can go to those few people in your life, and it's life-saving. I think it's life-saving.
Well, it is. It's life-saving. It's life-giving. So beyond the directive of do not forsake the fellowship of the saints. So you need church in your life simply because it's a command. Mm-hmm. God says it. So whether you believe it or not, it's the truth. And so I submit to that in obedience to live a life in fellowship. But now as we start to pursue Christ, we want to do it well. Mm-hmm. We want to fellowship well. And it's not just thinking about what my church brothers and sisters can do for me, but also really my mindset should be, how can I help my church brothers and sisters? And if they're thinking the same way, mm-hmm. what an amazing blessing that and a system that God's designed yep. for everyone to be able to help each other out. So I read and listened to a really good devotional, and it's kind of talking about the characteristics of Jesus and kind of godly manhood, if you will. But one of the things he talks about is you have to be, to your point, he used the analogy of a foxhole.
Okay.
Like when you are in spiritual battle, mm-hmm. like who are the guys in your foxhole who are going to be down in the trenches with you when that fight comes to your doorstep?
Yep.
And I think about times in my life where similar spiritual battles or similar temptations came, and earlier in my life, I had nobody in that foxhole, at least nobody that I was willing to be completely honest with. And so oftentimes was in a spiritual battle or stronghold on my own, and that is not a good place to be.
Yeah, totally not.
And now I think later in my life, going through spiritual battles or strongholds that I'm facing, and now having those people and having mentors, like I don't know if it would have resulted any differently, mm-hmm. but the battle is so much easier.
Oh, for sure.
The battle is and it's shortened, and I'm so thankful that it is a tough lesson, but I'm so thankful that those are lessons that I've learned, and the importance of having beyond just brotherhood of believers, but friendships and those mentorship relationships mm-hmm. That I can rely on. So who are those, not to put you on the spot, but what are some of those key mentorship relationships that you have? So if you found yourself in a bad spot, I'm calling this person.
I guess it depends what I got myself into, right?
Sure.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate enough to have a father who's been in my life mm-hmm. in totality of, he's seen the worst of me, he's seen the best of me. hopefully the best is yet to come, right? Christ is not done with us.
Right, redeeming you.
So my father is one that I could go to. And I'm not saying mom, and I know you're going to watch this, Mom. I would go to you too.
I said brothers.
I know. I'd go to you too, Mom. It's just, there's something about, your father as a man, just because he would think more like you. He would, relate to you. My father-in-law, David Sewell, is another guy who's just full of wisdom. And those two men specifically, Rick Earhart is another guy. He's been on the show before. He's great. He's definitely one that I would sound like Rayman.
Yeah. You mean it's gonna hit on 20? Yeah, definitely 20.
It's definitely 5, George. It's definitely. Sorry, Rick's one. Your one. I think I see peer to peer is roughly the same age. I know I'm older, but really close. Whatever.
Let's talk about that.
That I could come. I see you as your church leader. Some that I could rub elbows with, and I know you would stand your ground. If I pushed, spiritually hard, you'd
say spiritually, physically, you would not be over.
I'm trying to trim down, but those are the people in my life that's really within my body. My cousin Jason. Now, granted, we've kind of not drifted apart, but when you live 400 miles from somebody, you naturally kind of float apart a little bit. But he's still a guy I could call right now and talk to him. He would absolutely listen. What about you?
Yeah.
You got?
Yeah, my dad as well.
Yeah.
My dad has always been there for me.
Yeah.
The good, the bad. He's never been surprised. Like, he's not like, oh my goodness, how could you do this?
Yeah.
He just listens and gives sound. My dad's awesome, and as he's growing older in his life, I see him. He's always loved the Lord, but he continues to grow and mature into a deeper love for Jesus, and so that's been a huge blessing in my life. So my dad, there's several Christian brothers, you included, here at Calvary Chapel, as I've started to develop friendships.
He's just saying that because I said him, and he had to. He had to. It's one of those spots like I have to say him now, so we'll put a disclaimer. Those real small print at the.
Sam Lane, these guys that I've
Sam's another guy. I don't want to leave you out, Big Sam.
Good relationships with. My old college roommate, he's someone who's been a big friend of mine for a long time. Pastor Roger, and I think of those guys more mentorship. So like Pastor Roger, if I had a question or was struggling with something, I would, no hesitation, going to Pastor Roger. Our elders really are awesome. I will also say David Sewell. Kelly Masterson.
Kelly's a good guy too.
Jerry Reb, Harold Cavender, Mike Atkinson. Our elders are really awesome guys, and so I'm so blessed to be at a church where we do have a lot of those guys of integrity.
And you have that guy who sometimes comes.
He's like number one.
Well, you didn't list him yet, so.
So Mark Rodenbeck, my lifelong mentor. He would be the number one guy that I would go to share something outside of my dad.
Yeah.
And my brother too, as well. He's been there for me also my entire life. And so, but as we think about those people, many of them may have played a role. The Spirit may have used them to help us come to salvation, but God could have brought salvation through any means. But as we look at the road of our history, of our personal history, our life, and you see how God has transformed elements of our thoughts, elements of our personality, elements of our belief system, has really come through a lot of these individuals that have been on our path. And so who we choose to influence us is so incredibly important, which is why Scripture puts such a importance on the fellowship of the saints, because these are people who are also pursuing Christ. Mm-hmm. These are people who are like-minded in their moral code, because the code's coming from the same place. This is the absolute authority. And when we're surrounding ourselves with people of that same mindset, we tend to be influenced in the direction we're supposed to go.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus hung out with sinners, so I'm not saying, hey, you can only ever hang out with Christians, but who those people are who are influencing your thoughts, influencing your behaviors significantly. You have to be very careful.
That's true. He did hang out with sinners, but he also surrounded himself with 12 brothers that he intimately talked to and struggled with and fought with and
even 3 more so.
Exactly.
Right?
So that exactly.
That you were talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So he had the 12, really the 11. Let's be honest. You know who you are, you hangman. But then. Anyway.
I can't.
Yeah, you can.
What do I say to that?
You can't. It's funny. If you know, you know. And if you don't, read the word. Anyway, so he had the 11, and then you're right. He went down to the 3. Not that he didn't care about the 12, but he chose a smaller group to be even more intimate with, and that's what we're talking about. So Jesus could have done everything alone because he's Jesus. He chose to be in a relationship. He chose to be in with a group of guys. He chose to be even more intimate with the 3, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and in light of that, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about doing is bringing more guests on the show.
Yep.
Because we want to hear from the body. We want to hear from the church because there's so much more that the Spirit has taught that has not been revealed to us, or experiences that we've not had yet that are good morsels of goodness, good morsels of goodness, of Jesus' goodness for people to eat and digest and consume. I'm just going to stop talking.
One thing that I'm going to let him kind of, control out, delete himself, is I really found that I loved about this men's conference.
Command Z for the Mac users.
Yeah, I just want him to reboot real quick. That's all. I want him to come back. I just want him to reboot. Was if you are in a position at church and you think that what you're doing is not fun or not called or it's low, or man, get rid of that thought, because everything from someone taking out the trash to cleaning up a kitchen to taking care of kids to anything, any service in the church is excellent and awesome. And if you feel like you're doing something that's beneath you or looked down upon, get rid of that, bind it up, because you're serving. It's awesome. And I was really encouraged by that by this weekend. Like I said, we went to a men's conference here at our local church to talk about spiritual gifts and serving in the church. And this is kind of talking about why you should be involved in the church. And when everyone's serving, our motto, one of our mottos at Calvary Chapel, everyone's serving, everyone fed. Do you remember that time you spoke from the church and you said, if you have served in this way, stand up? So I serve on the worship team. I love serving on the worship team. It's one of my greatest honors in my life. But to look out, so when he was from the pulpit, he was saying, if you've served in men's ministry, stand up. If you've served in church ministry, and you listed 20 things, 15, 20 things. Guys, I'm telling you, 95% of our congregation at that point was standing up, and to look out to see everyone serving gave me chills. And it's like, oh, this is what the body's about. This is what the hands and feet are about. And I was so encouraged. I loved it.
Yeah, and that's what this is how the church is designed. Mm-hmm. God is the ultimate creator. He knows what he's doing, and when the church operates the way it's supposed to, it's a blessing to other people, and it's really amazing. So that's why I'm so excited to bring people on.
It's encouraging
to bring people on, hear from them, hear what God's done in their life. I think it's going to bless us. I think it's going to bless our viewers.
So over the next probably 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to have different guests, different topics, different seasons of life. Guys, it's going to be a great knowledge. It's going to be a great learning experience. We're going to get to know our guests that we're going to be involved with. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of why you should be plugged into your church on Becoming Branches.
See you next time.